Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing good and your preparation is going in full swing considering we have a very less time for the CLAT. The CLAT is approaching really soon. My name is Tarun and I'm a second year student at NLIU Bhopal. I got All India rank 182 in CLAT 2020. Today I'm here to discuss few things regarding this the CR section, the critical reasoning section, which I learned during my preparation and in last 1 year when I mentored a lot of students who successfully made to the top law colleges of India, including NLS, NASA, NLIU Bhopal itself, and many others. So without much further ado, I would start with this session. Today, like for the session, I have divided in a part of 10 answers to 10 questions, which I generally get from the aspirants for the CR section. So, starting with the very first question, which is regarding how to improve on accuracy in the CR section. Considering what CR basically, CR section, what examiner wants from you is to understand understand the passage and answer it on the basis of what you have understood from the passage, like the reasoning which the author used to elaborate on certain instances, or the author's parallel which author drew for certain instances, and the similar set of parallel you need to assess in the questions which is given to you, or there would be a certain explanation which the author would be giving in the passage, and you would have to identify what the premise for the for those arguments or for those conclusions. So the CLAT website specifically mentioned what all you need to study for the CR section, so you can go through that. Now coming on to improve accuracy. So after you understand what exactly you need to do in the passage, it becomes easy to go through this section. Now for accuracy, there are two ways. Ideally one way which I suggest people who are in the beginning phase of their preparation, which is something I usually tell is more effective, because accuracy is something like a natural process. You can't hurriedly learn it, but there are short tricks and tips which can be applied to kind of get to the right questions, so that you can have a high proportion of correct questions. So the traditional method, although there is not much time in your hand, but just to discuss, because it might help some of the people, those who can take, who can take or modify this approach for themselves, and might help them in certain way. So for the benefit of all, I'll discuss it. Generally, what we focus in CR section is to identify the correct premise, argument, and conclusion, etc. So for this, it is important that you understand these concepts first. Unless you have a proper understanding or know what things you need to do after reading the questions, you can't attempt the question in correct way. Although there are chances of flukes and all, but we don't consider that to be a correct way. So after you complete your concepts, which I generally suggest two books. Firstly, the MK Pandya. The other one is Manhattan, which is generally for the GMAT examination. Manhattan, why I consider Manhattan to be a very good book, because it explains, not only explains the concept, but also tells you how to differentiate between two closed options. It has a very good explanation on concepts such as elimination and how you analyze two options, because generally students are able to understand the questions and apply the concepts that they have learned, but they usually get confused between two closed options or three options, because options are mostly designed in a way that they sound similar, or they seem similar to the students. So that book has a very good explanation on how to analyze options and how to eliminate them. So after you complete your concepts from these two books, I'd suggest that you can make a short checklist type of thing, so that you can practice in your initial phase when you are just developing an understanding of the concept. That will really help you to develop good speed while you solve the CR section. While you solve the CR section. So after this, what I usually suggest to practice some sectional tests, and then switch to there is a website called as GMAT Club Forum. It is free to use website, And the best part about that website is that it has like a sorting feature where you can focus on key topics. Like if you want to practice questions relating to assumption, so you can directly sort the option of assumption, and there will be questions relating to assumption only. And the explanation that is given on the website is very good. Like they'll properly analyze all the options, why A wasn't correct option, why B wasn't, and why D prevailed over C. So this type of analysis helps you to develop your understanding how you would eliminate between two options, between two close options, because generally this is the major problem which students faces till the last part of the preparation. So if you use this like an analysis method in your in the very beginning, it helps you a lot. Those who are clear with the concepts can directly use like GMAT forum website now also, because if you practice around 70, 80 or 100 questions in these 1 or 2 days, it will help a lot to you, because you would sometimes there are very close options which after practicing 100 or 80 questions you can like subconsciously differentiate. So I'd suggest that you do this thing, and this is the ideal method which I tell students to perform, and the more you practice, the better you get in this. Now accuracy is something where you do not make bold mistakes, and sometimes there are mistakes which people make I'd say knowingly, like they make flukes, and although they don't understand the questions properly, they try to interpret it in their own way, and then they make a wrong option which they didn't analyze properly, and it is kind of, I consider it to be a sub fluke, like not a proper fluke and not a proper way of answering it, but some way midway of these two things. So don't do these type of mistakes where you are inviting more wrong attempts for yourself, and which will negatively impact your score, because you'll have more negative score. So this is generally the way where you can improve your accuracy. First thing, to work on to have more correct options, and on the same time work on not having more incorrect options, not having more incorrect attempts. So for correct attempt, you can go with the traditional method of completing your concepts, then practicing bisectional test, and then completing the same with your GMAT Club forum. Another major thing for improving your accuracy is to analyze your mocks properly, because a wise man does not repeat his mistake, does not repeat his mistake. Now, unless you analyze those mocks, you won't be able to know why you did those mistakes and what is the correct way of attempting those questions. By analysis, I don't just mean that you read the questions and you read the option. That is not analysis. That is simply you are going through the mock. By analysis, I mean that you go through the entire passage and the question, and then you try to solve it with the perspective that why you did these, why did this question wrong. And unless you have a proper explanation, why did you choose this option over the other option which is correct, the analysis is not complete. Because subconsciously you will apply this method, you will apply this reasoning again, and you will ultimately have this this mistake again in your mock. So analysis is something which helps a lot. I generally tell people that instead of giving 50, 60 or 70 marks, you should ideally give around 30 or 35 marks, where you can analyze your mistakes properly and work for improvement in more way. Because generally people give two marks a week, and then they don't have sufficient time to work, analyze, and sufficient time to work on their mistakes. So in a way, it makes the entire mock giving process a futile one. So analyzing the mocks is also one of the major things, and people, those who have their mock analysis records, can go through go through that record and see what all mistakes they did, and can directly work on them, and will help a lot to improve your accuracy. Because now you would see there are like 10-12 areas where you need to work, and as soon as you start working on them and solve around 20-25 questions for each topic, you will see that your mistakes will, your incorrects will dip significantly, and this way your positive score will increase and your negatives will eventually be less in your examination, and that will be a good boost for your CR section. Now coming on to the second question, which is regarding reducing time. I say that the ideal amount of time for CR section for a standard paper would be from around 25 to 30 minutes, considering there would be some questions which would be difficult, some questions which would be kind of easier. And I I believe that you do not need to attempt like 150 questions, like do not need to have all 150 questions correct in order to have a, like admission in your in college of your dream. The AIR 1, like in any CLAT, will not have 150 out of 150 in the examination. So think smart. You just have to have around 130, 135 attempts and a score of around 100 plus, somewhat around 105, 106. So this way you can easily manage to leave some of the questions which require more amount of your time. There would be some questions where you need to analyze all the options and go through the passage multiple times. So for the time being, you can leave that portion, leave that specific question. And if you saw, and when you complete your entire section, entire passage, entire examination, and you have time, you can come back to the question and try to get it correct. Because in this way you would be proportionately distributing your time to all questions which can be scored easily. So reducing time involves two things. Firstly, to smartly manage and attempt the examination, so that you can attempt the questions first which require less time to solve them, and the other one would be to improve your reading speed, improve your comprehension. The questions first which require less time to solve them, and the other one would be to improve your reading speed, improve your comprehension, and proper way of attempting questions. Like first you read the questions, like this advice specifically for the CR and English section. I ideally suggest not to read questions first in the legal section. There is an explanation for the same, but none of them is any like a general guideline. People, like some people are there who can modify these things and like bring into the practice which benefits them. So generally I would provide an explanation if you're satisfied with the explanation which I would be giving for reading question first in CR and English section and not in legal section. You can go with this, or you can you can have your own approach of solving questions. But I saw this thing working for me and for other people as well who have successfully cleared CLAT. So considering it, I offer this advice for CR section. In CR and English section, you have a very a direction in the questions which you need to find from the passage. And generally, people when they go through the passage, so it is like a kind of a directionless study they do. They don't know what exactly they need to find, and sometimes they miss on key points because some of the information which does not seem important at that time is directly asked in the questions. So when you read the questions first, it helps you to significantly focus on the areas which you need to which you need to know or remember to answer the questions. Reading the questions only means you just read the direction which would be given in the question. Don't read the options, because if you read the options, it will cloud your judgment and cloud your reasoning to properly understand and comprehend the passage. So read the questions, understand it, what exactly would be required to be to sort in the passage. And if you read the passage, you will exactly know what area of the passage will be there where you need to focus on. I'm not saying that do just read that portion, because you need to understand in what context the thing was said. So you have to read the entire passage, but where the thing would be written, like the questions where you need to focus on, you need to pay more attention, you can easily identify that after reading questions first. So that is one of the way where you can reduce time. Another way, try to develop a habit of reading the passage once only. This is difficult in the initial phase of your practice, but as you keep on practicing and as you advance your preparation, you develop this habit of reading the questions and passage only once, and you understand what exactly it wanted. Because this extensive reading which you do throughout 5, 6 or 7 months of your preparation helps you to get better in retaining the content which is given in the passage and in the question. So you should work on that regard as well. This significantly reduces your time. If you just read question once and not multiple times, it saves around 30 to 40 seconds of your time. And if you just see how significant it will save your time, if you just read question once, you'll be in a very good position. I understand there would be some questions where you need to read it twice. So this is there would be around 5 or 6 questions in the entire CR section. So you can afford, where the time you would be saving from other questions, you can proportionately give it to other questions. So this is the way you properly manage your examination. So there would be questions which would be require less time, and you can save it by reading once, and other questions which would be requiring to go through the passage again for some portion, you can manage it effectively. So it will significantly help you to reduce your time in CR section. Now regarding the comprehension in CR section, so I believe comprehension is something which does not involve like very different strategies for legal, CR or RC section. It is somewhat similar. Only thing that changes is the direction which is given in the passage. Like in CR section, you are like required to like see explanations, course of action, or the arguments given in the passage, or to see what premise was. So there will be slight change in what you need to see, but comprehension principles would remain the same. So you just need to keep certain things in mind, wherever there is a major argument which comes in, which the author makes, or a conclusion is derived, like where the author states certain arguments for his conclusion. So you need to focus more over there. If you keep these things in mind, so it will be easier for you to comprehend the passages, because in legal section you need to focus more on where the principle is given, where the law is being stated. What you need to do in the legal section is you need to divide the facts and the principle, so that you can apply the principle and see how the same law was applied in the fact which is given in the passage. So these are like some changes in the approach how you go with the passage, but not in comprehension. Comprehension is more or less similar, and in comprehension, I would say that you also should focus on the contextual meaning of the words, because there are some words which, although you feel that okay, you know these words, but when you see those type of words in the passage, they tend to give a different meaning. This happens because sometimes there are multiple meanings of the words attached to a word, and when the word is used in one scenario, it has a different meaning, and when the word is used in different scenario, it has other meaning. And there are things such as there are some official words and there are some legal terms, so you should be aware of these terms, and it helps you a lot to improve your comprehension. Now coming on to the fourth question which I have regarding how to improve on score, like if the score is stagnant between some range of around 15 to 18, so how you can improve it. So this is something which I address in first question itself regarding mock analysis. Here mock analysis helps you to improve further, because after you complete your concept, after you have practiced some questions, you would be in a position where you would be able to solve certain questions, and this helps you to get a score around 12, 13, 14. But there would be some questions in which you face difficulty. There could be multiple reasons. Firstly, that you are not clear with the concept of those topics. You are not able to understand the questions, what exactly you need to do, or you misinterpret the questions, or there are other things such as silly mistakes where something else was required and you did something else. So, or one thing could be different type of vocabulary being used for asking the concept, like strengthening the question. So sometimes it is mostly asked how with what the author would likely to agree with, or what will go against author's opinion. So these type of vocabulary is being, like different structure is being used to ask questions. So when you do mock analysis, you will see where you did wrong, and you will be able to figure out those mistakes properly, and you can work for improving it. And in this way, where you were just scoring around 15, 16, you will get these 2, 3, 4 marks extra, where you would be improving on your score. It will be easier for you to make further improvement. But be realistic, you can't have a score of around 30, considering in a standard paper, because a score of 30 or like a full marks can be achieved, but provided that you only focus on that section, and the examination is kind of easier. Otherwise, I advise that you proportionately attempt all the questions, and just don't become greedy to get to a position where you just want to score full. If you want, you can, but ideally you should be in a position where you know what is your ideal range for per subject, where you can which can help you to effectively manage all the sections and the entire examination, which will have the maximum marks. Now coming on to the question regarding what is the right approach for CR to solve CR passages. This thing something which I believe I have addressed earlier, that right approach would be to like divide the passage in a way that you can differentiate what were the major arguments the author made, how many arguments author presented. If you can easily determine how many arguments author presented, if you can easily determine that number of arguments author presented, or where the conclusion was, what all things the author used to support his opinion, or what all things he used to undermine the other opinion, so that helps you to easily break the passage, where you can effectively address the questions easily. Now the question which I keep getting is regarding reading question first or reading passage first, which I briefly talked about earlier. So I suggest reading question first in RC and in legal, and you shouldn't go with questions in the legal section. I didn't discuss why you shouldn't read questions in the legal section first, because there would be like 4 or 5 questions would be given, and all the questions would be based on different facts. Generally there would be 4 or 5 different situations where you need to apply principle. So if you can identify uniform principle from the passage, so it would be easier for you to apply the same thing on the passages, on the questions. But if you read the question, then you go to the principle on the passage, and you determine the principle. So it would be difficult for you to retain all the facts. And in legal, every fact, every information that is given in the passage, that given in the question counts. So in case if you miss on 1 or 2 point in the question, there are very high chances that you will mark the wrong option. So ideally you should go to read the passage first, determine the principle, what is the law, and when you read the passages, then when you read the questions, then it is easier for you to apply directly the principle, because you know what facts are going on and where exactly the principle will apply. So this helps a lot to solve legal section efficiently. You won't be making more negatives if you go with this approach. But there are people, those who can easily remember all the facts or retain all the facts, so they can go with other way as well. So this is general advice which I wanted to give you regarding reading question first or not, and you can use it in 2 or 3 or 4 mocks and see whether it works for you or not, and then accordingly you can work for it. Now regarding the practice in the last days. So in last days, I'd say that instead of focusing on learning new things, I'd suggest that you work on the portions where you have devoted significant amount of time, and you can just improve it. And here the best way to do is through mock analysis and through sectional test, because after you complete your mock analysis, you see that there are some topics where you need to work on, and after you complete your analysis and you work on those concepts, you do around 25-30 questions of those topics, you will have a better understanding, and the incorrect the way you did those mistakes will be will be reduced in coming sectional test and ultimately in CLAT. So ideal way of practicing in the last time would be to go through your mock analysis copy, see what are the areas where you need to work on, and do those things first. And one more thing, don't wherever you did you were going good, I suggest that you practice those concepts as well, instead of just leaving them, because generally we see things that people, those who were doing good in for certain topics, lost around negatively scored in those portions, because they were very confident, and they after a point of time they left practicing those topics, and then it gets difficult for you to recall those concepts, and then you get doubtful and anxious, and under that pressure in the examination room you tend to make more mistakes. So although these sections are your strong portions, I'd say that you practice around 25-30 questions as well for these topics. Now next question is how to attempt CR section. Attempt in a way where you should keep CR section in the sequence, whether you should attempt CR section first or English section first. So I'd say that this is something which is very subjective thing, because some people, they are they can manage reading like all the three sections, CR, English and legal in one go, and effectively manage their efficiency. I was one of them. I used to like keep CR, English and legal together because I was not like, I never faced a lot of problem in reading and losing my efficiency. So I used to keep like, my sequence was to complete GK first and then legal, English and CR, and ultimately going to the quantitative aptitude section. And there are some people, those who do legal first and then GK, and then the other sequence which people follow. So this is something which I'd say that you have been giving notes, and there would be some sequence which you would have developed. I'd say that you stick to that. One general advice: don't put mathematics section at first, because that takes a lot of time, and it has just very like 15 questions which won't give you a lot of marks. So ideally I'd say that you keep the quantitative aptitude section at last. That is one of the key thing which I heard from many people. Even I practice the same thing, that I never did like quantitative section at first. And one more thing, that if you're facing difficulties in CR, so don't put CR in last, because CR is not something where you just need to like apply your mind and see, like recall something. Like in GK you have to do, you just have to recall some facts, or in quantitative aptitude where you just need to apply a formula and solve the questions. It is different in CR. You need to understand the question, you need to comprehend what is given in the passage, and then perform a logical operation. So this requires a lot of your mind activity, and if you put it last, where you would be under pressure, you would be tired after like completing all of the 4 sections, it would be difficult for you to solve it efficiently. So ideally you should keep CR section at 3rd or 4th position. This way it significantly helps you to improve your score as well, because there are people those like who complain that they are scoring good when they solve 30 question or 40 questions set in a sectional test, but they're not able to do it in mocks. Because this happens because you're not able to maintain your efficiency in your mocks, because there you have to sit for 2 hours, and after 1 or 1.5 hours you get tired, or you lose your efficiency. So I generally suggest people that they should sit in a 3 hours schedule, where after you sit for 3 hours session for around 1 or 1.5 months, you develop efficiency where you can easily maintain that 1.5 efficiency and extend it to 2 hours, and it helps a lot, because you would be just as fresh as you were in the beginning, or you would just 5 or 10% lose your efficiency, which like significantly like contributes to have a good score. Now this coming on to the thing like what should be the sequence. So I'll say that it is something which is very subjective, and depending on what suits you better, whether you are comfortable with GK first, you should go with that. But generally going with a general method which I suggest people, and which I use, and most of the people use it, so would be you go with the GK section first, then you go with legal, English, CR, and at last quantitative aptitude. You can like in a way like change the position of CR and English, because they are mostly similar. So depending on what suits you better, like with what type of questions you are comfortable with, or which section is easier in the examination. Because if consider that the CR section is easier as compared to the English one, you should go with the easier section first, because there would be high probability of scoring marks. So you can like maneuver a bit depending on how the paper is, or which section is easier, which section is difficult, and on the basis of this you can easily change the sequence and make certain modification. But don't do a totally new thing on the days of the day of examination, or just a day prior to examination, because that will negatively impact your mindset, your preparation. You get anxious if it does not go well. So I'd say that don't make more experiment in the last days. Now what would be the sources for practice? I'd say now considering what would be the good sources for practice in CR section, I have this certain inclination towards GMAT forum. That I find this website is one of the best way you can practice practice CR. not only because it has a number of questions, but best part about this is it has a very good explanation for the options. Not only that, it gives reasoning for the correct option, but it also gives you the reasoning for the incorrect options, and it helps a lot for you to understand and analyze the options, because where student get confused between two close options, unless you analyze both the options and you know the difference why the option is wrong, and you have sufficient reasons to rely on the correct option, you get confused and you end up making the wrong option. So GMAT Law Forum is one of the best sources to practice, and then you generally have your mocks, your sectional test, you can go through them, and there are multiple websites which are available, and certain reference books such as MK Pandey, RS Agrawal. These sources I usually suggest to practice the CR section. Now the last minute tip which I give for the CR section, don't panic in the CR section, because you need to be very careful, very careful in while solving CR sections, because there are just one or two words which makes a lot of difference. So when you read the questions, identify two things: what is being asked in the question, and then if there are any other direction which are given in the passage, because there would be certain information that would be given, and then there would be an operation that you need to perform. There would be, for example, there would be argument which would be given, whatever the author had made, and then there would be a direction whether you need to do, you need to strengthen the argument, you need to weaken the argument, or you need to see whether the argument is logically correct, or any other option, any other thing. So if you identify these two things, it would be easier for you. Then you can easily go to the passage, the line which is given in the question, you can see what the author used and identify the reasoning, and then come to the answer, question, and easily mark the answer. And other thing would be properly read the questions, because generally people tend to read it hurriedly and miss on some of the very important aspect. People tend to see that they are not able to understand the passage, they miss on a lot of things on passage, they don't have they couldn't retain a lot of things from the passage. But one of the major mistake, or one of the major reason I found in many students mocks is that they don't understand the questions properly. They just read it hurriedly, they don't understand what the question wanted from them, and they make their own interpretation of the question and mark the answer incorrectly. But when they analyze it, they understand the question properly, and they see, okay, I made it wrong, and this was something which I had to do. Many of you would have seen that while you solve question in your mock, you end up making a wrong choice, and when you analyze them, when you just go through your mock after completing your your mock, you see that, okay, I did this wrong, the answer should have been different. This happens because of two things. Firstly, that you missed something in the questions, and other thing would be that you misread some of the information. So if you can just focus on these things, this helps a lot. Now other would be that you focus on vocabulary as well. People say that vocabulary is not that important. If you can understand major portion of the passage, that would be sufficient. But I understood this fact that unless you know the entire what the author wanted to convey, you can't do these close options, these close questions, where you just have to see whether the author agrees to this fact or not. And here, what type of vocabulary is being used is very important. Majorly the questions where you need to do in two questions, or what was the main theme. These type of questions requires you to be very precise with vocabulary. If you see that there are words which have negative connotations, there are words which have positive connotations. So if you have these understanding of vocabulary, how the words are used, what they intend to, what the author intended to with the words when he used in the passage. So it helps you a lot to have a good understanding and marks score properly. So these were the general tips which I wanted to give you for the CR section, and I hope all of you do great in CLAT. And in case you have any query, you can put it in the comment box, or you can contact us. The link would be given in the description box. So just this, I hope that all of you do great in CLAT, and your preparation pays you well. And I see most of you from the people those who are watching me on YouTube as my juniors in NLIU or at other law colleges. All the best, guys.